Okay, so I'm back with the camera turned around. All right, you. Let's get that out of your eye first. I know you don't like that. I understand. That's not good, whatever that is. We're both having our health problems, it seems, anymore. Okay, there you go. We got that out of your eye. I'm going to throw this away because this is all nasty. So we'll throw it away. There we go. All right. Now we got to put the ointment on your leg. Another thing he just loves, you know. He always enjoys it when I do this. Yes, he does. All right, there we go. See, there it is there. That's got to go on his leg. He's going to be thrilled when I do this, no doubt. Okay, you. We're going to put the ointment on your leg, sweetie. That's what we're going to do. I know you don't like it. There you go. It's on your leg now. That'll help you heal. That's the idea, is to keep the infection at bay, eh? Yes. I say there's no point trying to deal with the veterinarian because it's impossible. I find that, you can you can spend a lot of money, and all you get is an opportunity to spend even more money, and the issue does not get resolved. So it's frustrating. It seems like everything these days is just about tapping you for more money, more and more money. Boy, I had a situation there. This now on Facebook there, they're really piling up on me. They say I'm a bigot and a homophobe and everything else, and they're ashamed that I'm Canadian and all the rest of it. Everybody is mad. Now they're blaming Trump for all our problems, as if we didn't have problems. Anyway, I mean, we've had such an ineffectual government here. And what I pointed out in my comment that got everybody riled up is the fact that Canada, for the last 10 years, has focused on stupid stuff. And they've allowed the economy to go into the toilet. They've allowed human rights to be compromised and to be a thing of the past. There was one woman on there who said that she was grateful to live in a country where criticizing the political leader wouldn't result in reprisals. She's talking about Canada. And I countered by saying frozen bank accounts tell a different story. Because that happens here. If you criticize our prime minister, you can have your bank account frozen. Just for protesting or criticizing our prime minister. And I don't mean violently protesting. I'm not talking about breaking windows and burning cars and, attacking the police with rocks and bricks and clubs and things. I'm talking about peaceful protest. And, they'll freeze your bank account. Several people in Canada have been debanked, where their banks have actually, this is over and above having your account frozen, where banks can actually, refuse to do business with you because of your political point of view. That's happening here too. And so, no, you cannot criticize the leader here and count on there not being any reprisals. Of course, they're saying that in the States, if you criticize Trump, there'll be reprisals. But no, not up here, though. We don't do that, apparently. Although, like I said, frozen bank accounts tell a different story. Anyway, the bottom line is, they didn't like the fact that I said about how we paint crosswalks in rainbow colors, but we don't fix the roads that are no good. They didn't like the fact that I talked about the money that's being put into all these things for homosexuals and everything. We have, and now it's pretty much a crime, a hate crime, even to say that there's something wrong with all that. Then, of course, there's the whole thing of the transsexual movement and how that's affected things. Right now in St. Catharines, Ontario, there's a 50-year-old man who says he identifies as a 13-year-old girl. And he's joined a swim team of 13-year-old girls. And he changes with them and everything. Now, changing into a bathing suit necessitates nudity. You don't even leave your underwear on when you change into a bathing suit because your bathing suit replaces your underwear. So that means at some point in time when he's changing his clothes with these girls, changing into his swim trunks, or maybe his bikini, I don't know, maybe he wears a bikini, he identifies as a girl, so I don't know. I've never seen the man in his swimming gear, and I gotta tell you, I'm okay with that. But the bottom line is this. He identifies as a 13-year-old girl. He's in the change room with these girls. Now, at some point, there's nudity. Because there has to be. Like I said, your bathing suit replaces your underwear. So it's not even like there's underwear. There's total nudity during this process of changing. And this is a fully intact, apparently, 50-year-old man. This is a man that has all the parts that come with a man. I can tell you right now, if I had a 13-year-old daughter, I'd be raising bloody hell. And not because I'm a hateful bigot, but because it's indecent. A 50-year-old man in a room full of 13-year-old girls and everybody naked is indecent. And that's what's got me so pissed off anyway. And, you know, I got a few people who actually liked my comment, but of course nobody spoke up in my defense because they're all scared. Oh, we can't say anything, we'll get in trouble. I mean, right there, that should tell you something about the current state of Canada. Obviously, some people agree with me because they liked my comment. But there was nobody speaking up in my defense while I was being called names, you know, and while I was being accused of all sorts of evil for daring to say that this is a wrong situation. Well, I can tell you right now, if I had a 13-year-old daughter and she was on that swim team, like I say, I would raise bloody hell. And I wouldn't do it because I'm a hateful bigot. I would do it because, like I say, it's indecent. It's an indecent situation. We have men right now in Canada serving jail time in women's prisons. And I mean men. I'm not talking about transsexuals that have had bottom surgery so they don't have their dick anymore. I'm talking about actual men. Okay? Men with like fully functioning penises that get erect and everything. That's what I'm talking about. And a man can claim that he identifies as a woman and he has a right to be sent to a women's correctional facility. Now, a lot of the men who are doing this are up on sex charges. And they're afraid to go to a man's prison because they know that in a man's prison, a sex offender doesn't have a very good time. Sex offenders are really treated badly in men's prisons. And so they're scared, which is understandable. Look, you probably should be scared. If you're going to prison as a rapist or a diddler or whatever, if you're a man who's, you probably should be frightened. I'd be frightened too. But you know how I get around that? I don't do rapes and I don't diddle kids. That's how I get around it. But anyway, if I found myself in a situation, I don't know, let's say where I was falsely accused and going to prison for something I didn't do. Yeah, you're damn right I'd be scared. Be going into prison there with that label hanging on me, I'd be damn good and scared. And I'd have good reason to be scared too, and anybody would under those conditions. And I mean, it could happen. It's not like innocent people don't get blamed for things they didn't do. It has happened in the past, and it still happens. But the bottom line is, A good portion of these guys, though, that are facing those kinds of charges actually are guilty. And because they're afraid to go to a men's penitentiary, because they know the score, they know what's going to happen to them in a men's penitentiary, what do? They say, oh, I identify as female. And they get sent to a woman's penitentiary. So now we're going to lock a male sex offender in a cage with a female inmate. And a lot of these females, look, I've had my issues with women, I know that. I can't say that I'm a guy who really gets along all that well with women a lot of the time. But I'll tell you something, I still have some sense of decency about me. And to me, it's an indecent thing to lock a man in a cage with a woman against her will, especially a sex offender. And especially when you consider that a lot of the women who are in prison have a history of being sexually abused. A lot of them are in prison for stupid crap involving drugs and whatnot. And a lot of the time, that lifestyle comes of being sexually abused. So there's a lot of women that are involved in crime who are, at least in their past, victims of sexual abuse. So now you're going to lock them in a room with a sex offender because he has rights and he says he's a female. So, we got to lock you in the room with him. And it's okay because he's a woman after all. He says he's a woman, so it's okay and there's no problem. This is the mentality because he has a right to be treated like a woman. But in the meantime, an actual woman doesn't have a right to be protected in a situation where she's a captive. Like, yes, okay, she may be a captive due to her own actions. I get that. She's a prisoner, in all likelihood, unless she was blamed for something she didn't do and the victim of an injustice, in all likelihood she did something to put herself in that place. But we still have an obligation to protect vulnerable people, and prisoners are vulnerable people. Whether we like them or not is another story. Whether we approve of the things they've done is another story. It doesn't matter. As a society, if we're going to lock a woman, or anyone for that matter, in a cage, we have a certain obligation to protect them and not to purposely put them in harm's way. Anyway, I pointed all this out in my comments, and of course I get, well, you're a hateful bigot, and you're vile, and you're this, and you're that. See, this is the reason that this country is in the state it's in, because of people like that. Yeah, so it's fine then to have a 50-year-old man in the change room with the 13-year-old girls. The interesting thing about this 50-year-old man, too, is that other than the part where he goes into the change room with the little girls, he lives like a 50-year-old man. He drives a car. Actually drives a car. Show me a 13-year-old girl who drives a car. What 13-year-old girl do you know who owns a car? They don't drive cars. They freeze their ass off at the bus stop is what they do. 13-year-old girl don't have car keys. A 13-year-old girl has a bus pass. Or a cell phone so she can call her mom or her dad to come pick her up. That's what they have. When I was young, a 13-year-old girl had a quarter, so she could use the payphone to call her mom and her dad to pick her up because we didn't have cell phones and whatnot because it was the 1980s. It was the early 1980s when I was 13. I was 13 years old in 1981. So, you had a quarter. That's what you had. Here's a quarter. Go to the payphone and call me when you need to be picked up. Not, here's the car keys, drive yourself down there and drive yourself home. No. So what I would like to know, or here's a car of your own. Did you have at your disposal? No. Yet this guy says he identifies as a 13-year-old girl, but it's pretty convenient that the only time that he identifies as a 13-year-old girl is when it's time to get naked with the 13-year-old girls. I find that interesting myself, and I think that it's perfectly reasonable to ask some serious questions about that, even if they're questions that most of the people do not want to address. In fact, especially if they're questions that they don't want, the majority of the people don't want to address. What in the hell is wrong with people in this country? What kind of a weird trip are people on here that this is okay? How did we fall so far? Did we think that any of that is okay? We got men now going into the ring, in the boxing ring, with women and demolishing them in the boxing ring. Now, if I was married and I worked my wife over like that, I'd be sent to prison. But because these men claim to be women and they claim to be athletes and boxers, all the rest of it, they actually have a legal right to get into a boxing ring with a woman and fist fight her. Fist fight her like they're fighting another man. Like, no, none of this is right. It's weird right to its very core, and it's actually even worse than weird. Look, weird is okay to a point. I even like weird sometimes, because weird is different, and sometimes weird is refreshing. I'm not totally against weird, but what I am against is perverse. I'm against things that are perverse. I'm against things that are an abomination. And a lot of the things that are happening in our society now are perverse. Canada has drunk the Kool-Aid, has drunk the woke Kool-Aid is what it's done. And it's totally insane. We have a failing economy here. We're going bankrupt. Canada is going bankrupt. And all we can do is go, oh, bad orange man, bad Trump, oh, like that, He's to blame for all our troubles. No, we had troubles here before he was even before his first term as president of the United States, we had troubles here. Our troubles are worse now because that's what happens when you don't address a problem. Look, if you've got, say, you've got a tire on your car and there's an issue with it. Let's say one of the steel belts is twisted. So you're going down the road and it's, because the steel belt is twisted. So it makes the thing like that. And you just ignore it and keep driving on it. That problem isn't going to fix itself. What's going to happen is, at some point, you're going to have a blowout. And the car is going to get progressively rougher to ride in, until you have a blowout. That's what will happen. I mean, you can't just ignore it and it'll go away. Or you can't just focus on something else. Well, that the tire's no good, yeah, but the engine runs nice. So I'm just going to focus on the fact that the engine runs nice and ignore the bad tire. It doesn't work that way. You can do that if you want, but you're setting yourself up for a problem if you do. Anyway, the bottom line is that's the Canadian mentality. And then, of course, we get to hear all about, and I heard this in the comments today on this post where I commented, where they're calling me a vile, hateful bigot and all the rest of it. I get to hear all about how Canada is the best country in the world, and other countries are horrible, and therefore Canada is good. Oh, look, I never said other countries aren't horrible. I know all countries have their issues. There's no country that doesn't have problems. We're living in a fallen world. The entire world has problems. But I'm not concerned about the problems in other countries. I'm concerned about the problems here, because these are the problems that affect me. And I have every right to have an opinion. about what goes on here, even if others find it objectionable. They claim they believe in freedom. They say, oh, Trump wants to take our freedom. Now, Trump don't have to take your freedom. You're taking it yourself. You know, if you tell me that I'm not allowed to speak because you don't like my point of view, you know, I don't like your point of view either. So can I tell you that you're not allowed to speak? And if not, why? You know? I mean, look, we either have freedom or we don't. That's the bottom line. We either have freedom or we don't. And right now, I'm feeling like we don't. And to be told you're not allowed to say that, that just reinforces my feeling that we don't have freedom. Of course I'm allowed to say it. Either I'm allowed to say it or we don't have freedom. Just like those people that called me a vile bigot and all the rest of it. They're allowed to say those things. Now, what they've said isn't true. I disagree strongly with everything they've said. But they have a right to say it. That's how they feel. They have every right to say it. But the bottom line is, calling me a vile bigot doesn't fix anything. I mean, we can pretend that we don't have these problems. The thing is, it's very simple, too. All we have to do is we have to focus on stuff that isn't stupid, on stuff that matters, like getting our economy back on track, getting a hold on crime and everything. Look, they're mad at Trump now because of these tariffs. He's telling us we got to secure our border, or he's going to put tariffs against us. You know, these punitive tariffs, and they're all mad. Oh, Trump wants to hurt us. He wants to take our freedoms and all the rest of it. Now, look, right now, the United States has a lot of problems because they have had a woke globalist government for 4 years. They've actually had a woke globalist government for 40 years, as have we here in Canada. And the United States actually has a lot of problems that are similar to the problems we have here in Canada. Now, one of the issues the United States has is drug addiction. That's also an issue here in Canada. But of course, the United States has a much bigger population than Canada. That means it has a much bigger market for anything that's being sold, including narcotics.